So, VRChat's kind of really fucking up today with this new update. um, this is not what I had initially planned for the first video on my channel, but I feel like it's relevant and it's important to me, so I'm making a video on it and giving my 2 cents on this whole issue that's been blowing up over the course of the day. I mean, we've got one feedback post on their feedback for the open beta that's got over 18,000 upvotes, and they've received enough. They've received over 5,000 negative reviews today, pushing the game into a mostly negative rating. Like, this is truly something to behold here. I mean, look at these negative ratings. I can totally do this. Look at those negative ratings there. Look at how much of a huge drop that is. I mean, like it's like been slowly getting more negative gradually, from I can't do this for you. I'm not a news reporter. From this side of the graph to like this side of the graph, and then all of a sudden right at the end there it just spikes straight down. And we're gonna kind of talk about why that's happened today, because uh. It's been a heck of a day. I'm not gonna lie. So, first off, I want to give some credentials on myself. So, like, when I do make some most of what I say is gonna be like very layman's terms, but like, just sort of give some proof that I do understand most of what I'm talking about. I did just recently graduate with a bachelor's degree in computer science. I won't say at what school because that's information I would rather keep private. I don't want to be doxxed. um, so I have a fairly extensive programming and low-level computer knowledge at my disposal here to assist me as I sort of go through everything about this update. So I want to start first with what the security update is and what VRChat is hoping to accomplish with the security update. So, the main thing that's happened. So there are two main things that are happening. The first one, and the one that's like the really good part of this update, is they're adding in secure portals. So you can now lock your portals so that only like if you want to create a friends plus instance and drop a portal, only your actual friends can enter that portal. That's been a feature that really should have actually been there when they implemented portals, because it's kind of dumb that if you drop a friends plus portal in a public instance, that any random stranger can go into that portal and join you when you clearly made a friends plus instance because you didn't want to be bothered by random assholes from the Black Cat. So that's a really beneficial thing that they're adding with this update. But the other thing that they're adding is easy anti-cheat. So what is easy anti-cheat? It is an anti-cheat, a kernel-level anti-cheat software developed by Epic Games. Its main purpose is, when the game is running, to be running in the background and make sure that there are no other background programs or files running that are interacting with the program that shouldn't be interacting with the program. So that means mods and hacking tools and tweaks to the game files, like all that kind of stuff gets blocked by easy anti-cheat. Now, here's probably one of the bigger issues with this. It's not by any means the only issue with this update, but the biggest issue is that VRChat, I'm sure everybody who's played this game knows that it runs pretty poorly. And that's mostly because, a lot of the people that create avatars don't have a ton of experience. Like, most of the people that are creating models and avatars for VRChat are not, like, industry animators working for Pixar or something. Like, they don't... And if they are, the models that they create for their Pixar movies are really high poly and really high detailed, but they're used in animations that they render over a long period of time. Like, it's a totally different kind of model design. Movies from games. There are some that are industry animators for other movies or games that know how to make good quality models that are not like poor quality, but for a lot of the people that download Unity to upload their characters, they aren't great at optimizing things, so we end up with a lot of low quality avatars. And when you have a lot of low quality avatars loaded, that causes a lot of performance issues. So Easy Anti-Cheat will be running in the background while you have all of that in place. And now, anti-cheats add a good chunk of overhead, which means there's a whole bunch of stuff that they're constantly doing and running in the background that eats up a whole chunk of your resources. Like, Easy Anti-Cheat could easily take up 2 gigabytes of RAM to run its processes in the background and eat up a chunk of your processing power. And that's processing power that you need to render avatars and all that kind of stuff. Like, some of that's handled by the GPU, like drawing the frames, rendering the models, but some of the other stuff is calculated by the CPU. And if you have to give up, 25% of the CPU resources you'd usually have for VR, performance goes out the window because, you're already running Steam VR, which is maintaining your headset's connection to the computer, and you're running your controllers and connections to the base stations or whatever. There's a whole lot of stuff being run by Steam VR, and then on top of that, you're running a game. So you've got Steam VR probably eating up 4 gigabytes of your RAM at the very least, and then you've got, your game that's running, it's eating up a whole other chunk of your RAM and your processing power, and then to tack on an anti on top of that, it's very hindering to performance. So, the other important thing to consider is VRChat's implementation of the Easy Anti-Cheat. It's up to the game developers implementing the anti-cheat to determine what the anti-cheat does when it detects malicious behavior. And so in the case of VRChat, if it's detected any clients running or any mods, it will simply kill the application and it will prevent you from connecting to any of the VRChat servers so you can't log in. But it doesn't outright ban you. It doesn't temporarily ban you for a day or a week. It doesn't kick you from anything for any period of time. It's just you can't log in until you disable your mods. What that means is if you are a mod creator, either benevolent or malicious, there are no repercussions for continuously trying changes until you successfully bypass the anti-cheat. So you could, if you are somebody who develops a crashing tool, nothing's going to stop you from continuously trying to update your crashing tool until it works. And Easy Anti-Cheat is not very good. For those who, many people I'm sure know that, Apex Legends uses Easy Anti-Cheat. And, mere weeks after the game came out, there were already cheat tools being developed and in use because people had found a way to bypass it super quickly because it's not very good. And so they've implemented an anti-cheat software that everybody knows about and everybody knows has been bypassed in pretty much every single game that it's been used in. So we're all just kind of if you're going to choose an anti-cheat software, it can't be this one because this one sucks. So all that's going to happen is lower performance, as I mentioned. So one of the things that they mentioned in their update post for this update was their reason why they were implementing Easy Anti-Cheat in the first place was to, as they said, eliminate crashers and rippers. So let's first talk about crashers. There are a ton of ways to crash people, and VRChat has fixed, in recent memory, only one single crash that involved yeeting your camera off into infinity that would crash everybody in the instance. Because the game just would have no idea what it was supposed to do with this object that was not in a real number space to draw. And so the game would just freak out and crash. And what kind of crashes have they not fixed? Corrupted avatar bundles, shader crashers, particle crashers, out-of-bounds crashers, IK clamping, and abuse of the Photon network. None of that has been fixed by them, but it has been fixed by mods. The Photon one is the most dangerous because it's the network that handles most of what happens in VRChat. Like when you make your movements, when you speak, when you trigger an animation, when you pick something up in a world, when you enter something that's synced between all the users in an instance, all of that is handled by Proton. When you do something in game, your game tells Proton that you've done something, and then Proton tells all the other users that you've done something, and so they see that you've done something. But there aren't a whole lot of protections in place on that system. The client has too much control in that situation. And as a result, it's very easy for somebody to send invalid data to the instance, or an integer overflow, for example, that's going to cause an error in the network and cause it to crash the instance. And if the instance goes down, everybody that's in that instance gets booted out too. Because their clients are going to try to receive this invalid data or this overflow, and their clients are not going to be able to handle it, and they're going to encounter errors and crash. And it's just so easy to exploit, and that's why we have mods like Network Sanity, which protect against that. Like, if you have Network Sanity installed, it's really hard for you to be crashed through interactions and abuse with the Photon network. You'll only be crashed maybe by certain weird corner cases that somebody has discovered. And then, like, the mod maintainer will eventually learn about these corner cases that have been discovered by reports from their users and update it to fix those new corner cases. And so, like, if this easy anti-cheat is put in place, we're not going to be able to use any of our mods that protect us from being crashed. So you won't really be able to go into public instances at all. Because if you do, you're going to be prone to being crashed by any manner of things. And, like, even if you disable all avatars, which really makes the experience not all that great, because if you can't see what somebody looks like and how they want to express themselves, and you just see a robot floating in space, it's not as engaging as seeing the character that they might have put a whole bunch of work into. And, like, even if everybody's disabled, you still might get crashed. Like, we're going to go back to, like, when you go into the Black Cat, being crashed within 20 minutes of joining an instance. It's just not going to be great. So then ripping. The other thing that they were trying to address in this update is avatars being ripped. Now, their main target was mods that help with ripping. So, Easy Anti-Cheat is going to block the Rip Restores mod and a couple other mods that do ripping temporarily at best. But you don't need a mod to rip somebody's avatar. If somebody has an avatar that you really like, and you've got some way to access the API, all you need is that user ID, which you can get by going to their page on the VRChat website. Make an API call that says, hey, give me all of the avatar IDs for this user. And the API will be like, okay, I can do that. And so you've got a list of all of the avatar IDs. And then you go to the API and say, hey, please send me this particular avatar VRCA file. Once you have the avatar's ID, which is a link to that VRCA file. And the API will go, okay, here's the VRCA file. Great, now you've got a VRCA file, and there are plenty of tools that you can use, often even just within Unity, that can unpack that VRCA file. So you can get like the model files, like the meshes and the materials and the armature, and you can get particle systems and animation sets and all manner of other things from the avatar by decompiling this VRCA file, because the VRCA file is not encrypted. So, sorry for this sort of weird break in the middle of what I was talking about, but this just seemed like a pertinent place to put this, and I sort of discovered this and thought about this after I had made the recording, and when I was, rewatching it and like doing my editing, whatever editing I needed to do. Anyway, I was playing around in the files, and I came across something. So this is the VRChat folder. Don't ask why I have a random copy of Melon Assistant that's renamed here. Let me get rid of that, actually. I don't need that. So this is the VRChat folder inside of the Steam library folder. So I would say that the majority of people who use Steam probably know where the games are located. So if you can find that, you can find where VRChat is. And so here's what I discovered. This folder right here that it took me not even 2 seconds to get to from that root folder. These are all of the avatars that I currently have cached. Like, these are all VRCA files. These are all of the avatar model, the avatar files that like the game uses to load an avatar when you load an instance, so you can see somebody's avatar. These are all stored in a very obvious location in the system here. Like, if I was looking for where the models might be stored, VRChat data seems like a pretty obvious location. Streaming assets, assets. That's what models are. We commonly refer to like the models and materials and stuff that we've made for characters as 3D assets, avatars. All of these avatar files that are stored here unencrypted. So, if I wanted to steal an avatar that I saw, I have that cached. I need only figure out who uploaded that model, then I can look through the list of avatars they have and figure out what the ID is specifically, or if I have a decryption or a decompilation tool, I can just decompile all these files until I find the one that I want. And they're not encrypted, so it's super easy to do that if you've got the tools for it. And they're all right here, so I don't even have to launch the game. To rip one of these out of the game, technically all I would need to do is just drag and drop this out of this folder here, and then get a tool open and just decompile this, and I've got all the assets, because they're just sitting right here in the VRChat files. Not hidden at all, and most definitely exposed. So, anyway, back to what I was saying previously. I was in a chat thread earlier today actually talking about this, and I had mentioned how one of the things they need to do is encrypt the VRCA files. And somebody mentioned to me that like they didn't think that they could have them encrypted on the network because, then you download them and you have to decrypt them to load them. And I said, well, technically yes, that's true. You need to decrypt an avatar to be able to load it. But they can build facets into the game with obfuscated code so that you can only decrypt those files if you're inside of the game. Like, when you're inside of the game, it interacts with some secret location on a server, pulls down some API, some decryption keys, and can decrypt the model. And then even then, you don't have it fully decrypt the model. You have it decrypted in sections, so it's one, harder to crack, and two, takes longer to crack. But then so that, like, no part of the model is decrypted. The entire model is not all decrypted at once. So, like, you only decrypt. The game should only decrypt an animation when it plays, but all the animations should say encrypted until they play. If you have that, it's a lot of layers of encryption and a lot of encryption keys, but it will make it much harder to decrypt an avatar because it will take a lot longer to crack all those encryption codes. And then, like, even if those codes are somehow cracked, it will take a heck of a lot longer for any ciphering algorithms to decrypt them. Especially if, like, every piece is decrypted. And, like, if you've already got, if your game has set up to decrypt it efficiently, then it won't take that long. But that would be part of, like, the loading and processing. And then, like, if you've already loaded an avatar, maybe you save it in a cache in a certain way that it's not accessible outside of the game, but the game can still read it in an encrypted file. That's not all necessarily going to work. I'm not an expert in cybersecurity and encryption, but I spent some time in my classes learning about it, and I did an internship last summer that was at a cybersecurity place, so I have some inkling of how you might go about implementing an encryption system for the VRCA files, and that's what's important, because you don't even need to launch the game to rip somebody's avatar. And re-uploading doesn't require mods either. You can, there are tools available that you can just drag a VRCA file that you've ripped from the game into Unity, put in some tool, and basically replace the blueprint ID attached to that VRCA file with your own, and sort of rebundle it and upload it for you in seconds, and you'll have all of the animations as they were, all the mesh, the materials, everything as it was. Which is why there are modified versions of a number of the shaders that allow you to encrypt it, so you have to put in specific encryption keys to be able to sort of untangle a mesh and make it look in any way decent. And, those work well, but they're a hassle to use, which is why a lot of people don't use them. So, Another one of the bigger issues that disabling all mods is going to have for the community is there's a lot of quality of life mods that exist. So I mean, there are the anti-crashing mods, but there are also mods like that help move your menus around, and mods for like disabled people. Like there are so many mods that provide services like text to speech and speech to text and closed captioning and all kinds of stuff for people who are deaf, mute, hard of hearing, or don't have selective hearing. And there are mods that reduce, lights and flashes and avatar effects and all kinds of stuff like that might be triggers for those with epilepsy. And there are mods that adjust positioning of menus and assist with interactions and all kinds of stuff for people with like physical disabilities. Like all these kinds of things that make the game more accessible to somebody who maybe has a form of muscular dystrophy and is stuck in a wheelchair, or has like a missing leg and is stuck in a wheelchair and can't do certain actions. They can use these tools to assist them, or if somebody's unable to speak, they can use a text-to-speech tool to talk to people, or if they're hard of hearing, a speech-to-text tool so they can see in a text form what somebody is saying to them so they can still interact. And if the mods are gone, the game is inaccessible to all of those people, which means you're cutting out a big chunk of the player base right there. So another thing that they mentioned in their blog post was that part of the reason they were doing this was in an effort to reduce workload, because they were talking about how like whenever the game updates, they receive so many bug reports that are really issues with mods, and like anybody that makes a bug report related to a mod, and I'm not trying to be mean, is I think fairly tech illiterate. I mean, mods are against the terms of service. So if you approach the team and be like, I'm having an issue with a mod, they're going to ban your account because it's a violation of the terms of service. Or like if you're having an issue with the game and it ends up being because of a mod, you still might get your account banned. But like, it's common sense to most people who have any amount of tech literacy that if you've got a mod for a game, that's not maintained by the developers of the game. And the mod can only be updated after the update to the game comes out, and the person who makes the mod has access to the newer updated code base of the game. So when VRChat updates, all of our mods don't update with it immediately. It takes a little bit of time. Usually it's within like a day or two, but like they've been gradually tweaking things and making it harder for modders to do that by obfuscating more of their code. Now I get wanting to obfuscate the more critical components. You don't want people to be able to read the really important critical stuff that allows the game to run smoothly. But like, they could even make an API that exposes some of the UI components, so you can add like more stuff to the UI to make it more usable for people. Like that's kind of what World of Warcraft has done. Like people wanted to be able to make modifications, so they're like, we will make add-ons a fully supported thing. You can use Lua, and here is an entire library that hooks into our codebase that you can use to make your own UIs. Like, you can mod the fuck out of World of Warcraft. You can even replace, like, the models from the game. And, like, it's fully stable and secure because of the way they implemented it. But because VRChat has no, like, formal mod support, people have to dig into their files and make things themselves that could be dangerous. So anyway, they're trying to reduce the amount of time and support technicians they have to dedicate to resolving issues that people have because they're using a mod. And they think this is going to help them with that. The reality is, it might decrease, at least for a little while, the influx of bug reports related to mods. But it's going to increase the workload on the developers, because all of these quality of life improvements that people have made for the game that people want to use and are going to want them to put in the game since we can no longer mod it, those developers are going to have to work on implementing all those features themselves, and that's like hundreds of mods worth of features that they might have to implement in order for us to have the same experience. And that's that is a considerably larger amount of work than entering a few thousand bug reports that are related to mods, and I'm sure a lot of those bug reports are genuine bug reports. They're not all necessarily the result of mods, even if a lot of them are. So, to give you guys a sense of how much of the VRChat community is going to be affected by this update, I want to take a look at some discords I've got here. So, I sent an invite to myself so I could get the stats for this from the VRC network. So VRC, for those who maybe don't use it, I actually do use it. But for VRC is a mod that adds in an ability to search for avatars from the menu. It adds in more spaces to add favorites, and it adds sections for favoriting friends and more spaces for favoriting worlds. And it adds in a bunch of quality of life improvements and a bunch of useful tools. And like they have their risky functions, which are like no clipping and flying and teleporting and all that kind of stuff. But they've intentionally set the code up so that in worlds that are games, it's disabled. So the games, you can't cheat with those in the game. And it's used by a considerable amount of people. VRC is like one of the most popular mods in the game. So, just looking at this right now, it is 2:41 in the morning, my time. So for me, it's midnight. I mean, there's people that are all across this world. So peak time it varies. It spikes and goes up and down through a lot of the day. So, but this is on Discord. So in the VRC network, just online, there are 54,271 people right now. 54,000 people. Now, let's have a look at the Steam charts for VRChat. So, right now, in the last 3 hours, there's been an average of 21,878 people online. So, just sitting online in the Discord, not including people that are offline, there are more than double the number of people actively playing VRChat. And this is just on PC side. This isn't related to Quest. In the VRC network Discord, there are 109,424 people in total. 109,424 people. I mean, that's listed as people that are offline. So I think actually in total, combining these two numbers, there's like 160,000 people in this Discord. 164,000 people. Actually, no. What is it? So 54,000 plus 109,000 is 150,000. 154,000 plus 9 is 163,000. So about 163,000 people that have used or use VRC of their entire player base. So it says the all-time peak was 42,000. 24-hour peak is about 30,000. So, it fluctuates between 20 and 30,000 people online. The monthly average is probably around 30,000 or 25,000. And the number of people that have used VRC is 25, 50, 75, 100, 4, 5, 6, about 6.5 times the number of monthly active users. So, there is a huge portion of this game's player base that uses mods. Like, I don't think I'd be wrong in saying that it's a vast majority of the players on this game that uses mods. Like, every single one of the friends that I play with uses mods in some capacity. Some don't really, but most do. And the vast majority of the people that I'm friends with that don't use mods are the people that are Quest only. Because you can't really mod a quest. I mean, there are ways to mod the quest, but it requires sideloading, which is dangerous and requires being pretty tech savvy and could break your console, your headset. And people don't really want to do that. So that's why most of the quest users don't really have any of the mods. Which is why, if you ever go to the Black Cat on a given day, and your Quest users in the lobby, every maybe 20 to 40 minutes, you'll just see all the Quest users go boop, gone, because somebody will have come in with a crasher. And all of the PC VR users have all their mods that protect them from the crashes, but none of the Quest users do, because you can't mod the Quest. So if this update does go through, it'll basically leave all the PC VR players with no more protections than the Quest users have. So all the people that do like to do malicious things in this game, all the people that use the crashers and the rippers, are going to be running rampant with nothing stopping them. So at the end of the day, what the VRChat team really should have done was, for one, not use easy anti-cheat because it's a terrible anti-cheat. They should have gone with something more powerful, and they shouldn't have waited on implementing an anti-cheat until they had implemented a number of these quality of life features. Like there are no actual accessibility options in this game. Like if I go into my main settings, I've got gallery, worlds, avatar, social settings. So under settings, comfort and safety, user wheel height, mouse, which isn't even relevant in VR, voice options, other options, microphone, volume levels. That's it. There is no section in this game with accessibility options. Those only exist because people have modded this game. So they need to start adding in some of those accessibility options that have been modded in, and some of the quality of life improvements that have been modded in, like the one that disables avatars after they're a certain distance away from you to reduce the drawing load of the GPU and keep things smoother. They need to add in that kind of stuff before they throw in an anti-cheat and prevent us from being able to mod. And the code for a lot of that already exists. There's no reason why they can't go to some of these mod creators and be like, hey, this feature that you've created is a really good feature, and it probably would make sense to have it in, the main VRChat. It would just be part of the base game. We would like to use your code and implement it. Granted, they probably will have to make their own changes and make sure that it's up to their coding standards if they have any. And it will take some time, but they could, or at least reference that person's code because it already exists. The bug's already been fixed. But instead, they're just dropping the hammer on all of this and making a whole bunch more work for themselves while completely obliterating the casual player's experience, allowing crashers and rippers to run rampant and basically just wrecking the experience for most of the people that play. This update is just a huge misstep on the part of the VRChat team. And they really need to, roll back this and take some time to consider how throwing this into the community is going to affect it, and take some time to implement some of these features that we've been asking for as a community for several years. Excuse me. Before they remove our ability to mod. And again, they use easy anti-cheat, which every mod creator is going to be able to bypass in a couple of months because it's not a very good anti-cheat. So what we're going to end up with, if they go through with this, is in a couple of months, 2 to 6 months down the line, all of our mods are going to be back as they were. The only difference is we're going to have this massive performance draining overhead running in the background doing nothing. It's just going to be a program running in the background for the sake of a program running in the background because everything will be past the easy anti-cheat. So I'm probably being a little bit repetitive, but to conclude, to wrap things up, this is not the way to go about increasing security for VRChat. This is not going to stop the issues that they're trying to stop, that they think they're addressing. It's going to, if anything, exacerbate them for a number of months until we get our mods back. They're going to have even more work for themselves if they want us to be able to enjoy our experience in this game and care about their community. And for a good long while, they're going to be leaving all of the people that play this game with disabilities completely unable to even play it. Like, there's going to be no point. Like, for those who have epilepsy or are hard of hearing or deaf, there's going to be no reason for them to launch this game. They're not going to be able to interact with any of their friends. They're going to have to worry about, having an epileptic seizure or something, which is not great, especially when you're in a VR headset. All this is doing is causing a huge mess. And VRChat needs to not go through with this because it's only going to cause more problems and it solves nothing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed me ranting for a little bit, and hopefully the next video that I post is a little bit happier. I wasn't actually planning on really starting my channel until I moved out of the house and into my own place, and that might be happening soon. I'm in the process of applying for some computer science jobs, some programming stuff. I'm going to be working for this cool company that does a lot of AI work, so that'll be really fun. And I'll be moving to where the job is located, and I'll have my own place, and then I can really start my channel without having to worry about people walking or whatever. So this is probably going to be the only video that I upload for the next month, maybe 2, until I've got a job and I'm situated in my own place. Unless, like, on the off chance I can upload something if I've got time by myself. Like, I have a feeling if I can do any video recordings, it's going to be if I'm home on Thursdays when both my mom and dad are at work and I don't have to worry about anybody intruding. Like, that's why I don't record much. It's a pain in the butt when somebody comes in and asks me to go do something when this is totally off topic. Anyway, so I won't be posting again probably for a while until I'm situated in my own place and can properly do a YouTube channel. But I hope you enjoyed watching, and maybe I'll see you in the future when I can come back and actually really start this, and the second channel that I'm hoping that I can start if I can make any decent tutorials related to programming. Anyway, I will see you all in the future. Have a great day or night or whatever time it is for you. Have a good life. There we go.